was 1958. America stood on a knife's edge. The Cold War was more than a backdrop, it was a suffocating reality. At every turn, suspicion lingered like fog. Whispers of Russian spies, double agents, propaganda threats, it was a nation holding its breath. And within the echoing halls of a government building in Washington, D.C., a young woman named Evelyn Hart was doing the one thing no one else dared, listening closely. Evelyn wasn't a politician or a soldier. She wasn't trying to climb any ladder or wave any flag. She was a codebreaker, a mathematician with a mind like a scalpel. Just 29 years old, often overlooked in meetings, dismissed by superiors, and underestimated by peers. But Evelyn didn't need recognition. She needed the truth. It started as a pattern. A strange repetition buried deep in intercepted Soviet communications. Most would have missed it. Many did. But Evelyn didn't. She stayed late. Studied longer. Layer by layer, she peeled away the encryption until something horrifying emerged. It wasn't espionage. It was sabotage, intentional, deliberate, and devastating in its ambition. Through intermediaries and manipulated trade networks, America's food supply was being targeted. Disrupted. Quietly poisoned by inflation, scarcity, and control. And at the center of it all? Names she recognized. Officials she'd seen smiling beside the president. Men whose signatures were printed on official documents and on damning Soviet correspondence. For weeks she worked in silence. Each discovery weighed heavier than the last. Families across rural America were going hungry. Prices soared. Farmers lost their land. Breadlines returned. And all of it was being engineered by enemies abroad and traitors within. When Evelyn finally gathered the courage to present her findings, she approached her immediate supervisor, hands trembling as she laid the files on his desk. He barely glanced at them. Then slowly, he opened a drawer, slid them inside, locked it, and looked her dead in the eyes. "You never saw this," he said coldly. "Walk away, Evelyn. For your own good." She didn't sleep that night. Or the next. She tried again, climbing the chain of command, knocking on doors. No one listened. Or worse, they already knew. Soon, the fear began. Subtle at first. Her apartment window left ajar when she knew it had been locked. Phone clicks and silence on the other end. A man in a trench coat standing just a little too long at the corner near her building. One night, she returned home to find her files gone. Her notes shredded. Her mailbox empty. A message without words. Evelyn knew she had a choice: remain silent and complicit, or risk everything and speak. She chose the latter. On March 16, 1958, she mailed a package, anonymously, to a contact she'd once met at a journalism symposium. Inside were copies of her findings, transcripts, and decoded messages. The next day, at midnight, the New York Herald printed the front-page headline that would bring America to a standstill. Leaked documents expose food chain sabotage. Soviet ties to U.S. officials alleged. The reaction was instant. Within hours, the story exploded across networks. Televisions flickered with breaking news. Radios buzzed with panicked urgency. Americans flooded the streets, outraged and terrified. Protests erupted in major cities. The stock market wobbled. Food distribution centers were raided by federal agents. And in Washington, a storm brewed behind closed doors. Congress launched an emergency inquiry. Senate hearings were held behind tight doors in guarded silence. Some officials resigned. One fled the country. But as quickly as the fire spread, something strange happened. Within just 2 weeks, the scandal, the story that had gripped a nation, vanished. News outlets stopped covering it. Political spokespeople pivoted to new distractions. The files were sealed. Investigations paused. Evelyn was quietly terminated. No hearing. No reason. Just a letter stating her services were no longer needed. She was blacklisted. Her credentials erased from internal databases. Her job applications rejected without explanation. Overnight, she had gone from anonymous patriot to invisible ghost. And so, Evelyn Hart disappeared. She never gave a press conference. Never wrote a book. Never sought compensation or fame. While others profited from secrets, Evelyn walked away from hers. She moved to a quiet town in upstate New York, living under a different name. Tending a garden. Feeding stray cats. Keeping to herself. For decades, she remained a myth, if anyone remembered her at all. Until 1994. That year, under a new transparency initiative, the CIA declassified hundreds of Cold War documents. Hidden among them was a single memo, unassuming, dated, but damning. It confirmed everything Evelyn had exposed. Every decoded message, every manipulated channel, every planted official. She had been right. Completely. And no one ever told her. Except one man. An anonymous law clerk, who'd found her old address in an archived personnel file, sent a short note scribbled by hand. They erased your name. But not your truth. The note was unsigned. But for Evelyn, it was enough. The final known quote attributed to Evelyn Hart came from a rare interview she granted to a college student writing a thesis on Cold War whistleblowers. She said, "I was never trying to be right. I just couldn't sleep knowing what I knew." In a world addicted to spin, headlines, and fleeting outrage, Evelyn's story lingers like a ghost. Because it asks a question few are willing to answer: what would you sacrifice for the truth? It's easy to imagine we'd all do the right thing. That we'd all speak up. But Evelyn lived it. She lost everything. Her career. Her reputation. Her peace. And she gained nothing in return, except the knowledge that she didn't let fear win. This story isn't about politics. It's about courage. The quiet, invisible kind. The kind that doesn't make front-page news or Netflix documentaries. The kind that sits alone at night, terrified, and still decides to act. So the next time you hear about a whistleblower, a leaker, a lone voice challenging power, remember Evelyn Hart. Remember that sometimes, the most powerful revolutions don't come with violence or noise, but with a single envelope, slipped into the mail, at midnight. And remember this: one secret really can change a nation overnight.